Hello, everybody. I'm Ed Robinson, and welcome to another exciting edition of the League Wraparound. This is the program that gets you caught up on anything and everything happening in the NFL. Coming up on this edition of the program, we'll preview Week 17's most important games in the NFL. I like to say I hope you all had a very Merry Christmas. On behalf of each and every one of us here at the League Wraparound, we like to wish you a very Happy New Year. So again, thank you so much for tuning in to this edition of the program. I like to start off talking about Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson has been one of my favorite quarterbacks in the NFL within the last decade and a half. When I think of Russell Wilson, I think about a quarterback that has been able to make plays with his athletic ability, the ability to throw on the run, and also his ability to throw the deep ball. We know about him winning a Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks, being a part of the Legion of Boom, also having beast mode Marshawn Lynch as his running back. Well, last year, he was traded to the Denver Broncos, and his first year in Denver, listen, we know about the fiasco and the disappointment that had happened with Nathaniel Hackett as his head coach, right? Last year, the team went 4-11. Yeah, he passed for over 3,500 yards, 16 touchdown passes, 11 interceptions. Sean Payton, during the offseason, this past offseason, I should say, became the head coach of the Denver Broncos. Hey, when I heard, and a lot of people heard that Sean Payton and Russell Wilson were going to be joining forces, it was going to be outstanding. Well, they got off to a rocky start, 1-5. Since then, they went on a tear. They went on a massive winning streak. During that winning streak, they beat Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Monday Night Football, they beat the Buffalo Bills. And hey, everybody was talking about the Denver Broncos making a run. Well, guess what? Unfortunately, they've been on a losing streak, losing to the New England Patriots on Christmas Eve, and then on top of that, losing to the Detroit Lions the week before that. And in recent news is that Wilson's going to be benched the last two games of the season to preserve financial flexibility. I don't know what to make of this. If there's anything I could make of this, I think two scenarios come into play. Number one, it said that Wilson was going to be preserved due to financial flexibility, but I'm going to give you two scenarios, how I feel about this situation. Scenario number one, Sean Payton never believed in Russell Wilson. I think Payton becoming the head coach of the Denver Broncos, it's easy to see that Sean Payton, his many years being with the New Orleans Saints, having Drew Brees at the helm, you know that Brees and Payton had a very close relationship. Brees is a pocket passer, whereas Russell Wilson is not a pocket passer. He's a guy that, as I stated earlier, he works well when he's throwing on the run, using his legs and throwing the deep ball. I think that Sean Payton has come to the realization that Russell Wilson is just not his guy. That's what I believe. That's scenario number one. Scenario number two, the finances are too much. That contract is massive. This year is the final year of the Seattle contract. Next year, the Denver contract is going to kick in. So there's a lot of scenarios that are going to kick in, in terms of what's going to happen with Russell with the new Denver contract coming in. We know that Russell is not going to restructure his contract. There's news and there's a lot of rumors behind that. And I don't blame Russell. I wouldn't take the hometown discount neither. So it makes it perfectly clear that Jarrett Stidham will make his first start for the Broncos against the Los Angeles Chargers for Week 17. Now, I don't know what to make of this. Russell Wilson or Jarrett Stidham, you make the call on this one. Me personally, I don't like this. I think they should ride with Russell every step of the way. Now, in terms of the financial situation and Russell's contract, Russell Wilson has a $37 million injury guarantee for 2025 that doesn't become fully guaranteed until March. So if the Broncos decide to move on from Russell, listen, he's due $39 million, which is fully guaranteed in 2024. And then, as I stated earlier, he has a $37 million injury guarantee that becomes fully guaranteed in March. Now, also, too, here's another scenario to this as well. In Wilson's contract with Denver, with the new contract kicking in March, he has a no trade clause in his contract. So if he doesn't restructure his contract, they're going to have to release him. And Russell is guaranteed money in terms, if they decide to release him, guess what? Russell is going to be guaranteed money. And also, too, the Broncos are going to be paid. The Broncos are going to be dealt a cap hit as well, which no matter how you slice it, Russell Wilson is still in a win-win situation. So let's hypothetically say that Russell is going to won't be a member of the Denver Broncos in 2024. I've got some teams that will definitely, let's just say, that could use Russell Wilson's services. I'll give you one team, the New York Giants. Tommy DeVito, the future is uncertain for him. Tyrod Taylor, he's serviceable. Russell Wilson, listen, he's got great looks. He's athletic. He speaks well. Oh, yeah, and his wife is Sierra. And let's just say, I think Russell and Sierra would love the bright lights and big city of New York. And I think the New York Giants are in desperate need of a quarterback. Hey, Brian Daboll, he was the offensive coordinator with the Buffalo Bills. And currently he's been in New York for 2 years. I think he would welcome Russell Wilson. They've got a solid running back with Saquon Barkley. They've got decent wide receivers. They could win. The New York Giants could definitely win with a quarterback like Russell Wilson. And I think personally, the Big Apple would love Russell, and Russell would love it back as well. That's scenario number one. Or should I say team number one. I'll give you another team, the Washington Commanders. Russell Wilson is from nearby in Richmond, Virginia. I think he would welcome the opportunity to play on the East Coast again. Again, if the New York Giants don't come calling him, I think the Washington Commanders would be a nice move for him as well. Think about this. The offensive coordinator and the assistant head coach, Eric Bieniemy. Yeah, Ron Rivera is the head coach, and let's just hypothetically say that Rivera may not be back in 2024. If Eric Bieniemy's the head coach, hey, all bets are off, right? They have a lot of cap room in Washington. You've got the majority owner, who is Josh Harris. Also, you've got the minority owner, Magic Johnson. Also, Doug Williams is the director of player personnel for the Washington Commanders. Remember, Russell Wilson, African-American quarterback. He's already won a Super Bowl. He's got the credentials. The talent is there in Washington. And also, too, they have the cap room. They can afford the contract. And also look at his offensive talent. I mentioned about with the Giants with Saquon Barkley and some of those receivers in New York. In Washington, Scary Terry McLaurin. You've got Logan Thomas, who's a formidable tight end. You've got Brian Robinson Jr., who's the running back. You've also got Curtis Samuel, just to name a few. The Commanders have some talent. They can definitely make some noise if they can land Russell Wilson somehow, some way. Hey, look who's in the NFC East. Dallas with Dak Prescott. Philadelphia has got Jalen Hurts. If the New York Giants don't make a run for Russell Wilson, hey, the Washington Commanders can make a run for Russell. I'll give you another team, the Atlanta Falcons. His wife, Sierra, is from the ATL. So I know she would welcome the opportunity if Russell lands in Atlanta. Desmond Ridder is a young talent, Desmond Ritter could learn maybe for several years under the tutelage of Russell Wilson. Atlanta, they've got Drake London, they've got Kyle Pitts, they've got Bijan Robinson as their running back. Hey, the Falcons have a young nucleus, and when you bring in a quarterback like Russell Wilson's caliber, listen, Arthur Smith, he can do a lot of things with Russell. The Falcons would welcome Russell with open arms. Hey, Atlanta's got the cap space. They can afford that contract. They would welcome him with open arms. And as I stated earlier, the wifey is from the ATL. Something to think about. I'll give you another team number 4. How about the Pittsburgh Steelers? The Pittsburgh Steelers need a quarterback. We don't know the situation with Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph. He's having his moment right now, but Mitchell Trubisky, that hasn't worked out. But I know the Pittsburgh Steelers would welcome Russell Wilson with open arms. It's an organization that loves consistency. They love stability. I know Mike Tomlin, they're not going to kick him to the curb anytime soon. So I'm sure the Pittsburgh Steelers would have loved to get a crack at Russell Wilson in the event the Denver situation does not work out. If I'm Russell Wilson, I'm getting out of Denver quick, fast, in a hurry. And I've given 4 teams that would welcome him: the New York Giants, the Washington Commanders, the Atlanta Falcons, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Also, too, I'll give you a 5th team, the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young could use a mentor, but also, too, Russell Wilson could come into that situation and can change things immediately. He could start right away. And hey, there's some talent with Carolina. I know they're going to have to tweak their offensive line, but Russell Wilson's got the athletic ability, he's got the experience, and he can make things happen. So this situation is very sketchy in Denver. The Denver Broncos have not had a consistent starting quarterback since Peyton Manning's last year in the NFL, which the Broncos won the Super Bowl his last year in the NFL. And since then, they've gone through quarterbacks like Brock Osweiler and also Drew Lock, Brett Rippon, just to name a few. It hasn't been good. Let's just call it for what it is. It has not been good. And Russell Wilson was supposed to be the one that was supposed to make things happen and change things. But now the Broncos are saying, specifically Sean Payton is saying, that Russell's going to be benched for the last 2 games to preserve financial flexibility. I'm sorry, I'm not buying that. Since Peyton Manning, here is the laundry list of starting quarterbacks that the Denver Broncos have had: Brock Osweiler, Trevor Siemian, Paxton Lynch, Case Keenum, Joe Flacco, Brandon Allen, Drew Lock, Jeff Driscoll, Brett Rippon, and Teddy Bridgewater. That was until Russell Wilson has shown up. And now Jarrett Stidham is going to get the start for the Chargers in Week 17. Russell Wilson or Jarrett Stidham? It's a no-brainer for me. I'm going to go with dangerous Russell Wilson. But hey, what do I know? If anything, I think George Patton and the management with the Denver Broncos, they ought to be ashamed of themselves for not honoring that contract. And also kudos to Russell Wilson for putting his foot down and not giving in to restructuring the contract or whatever they wanted to, what the Broncos wanted him to do. So again, Wilson is due $39 million, which is fully guaranteed in 2024. There's also the injury guarantee for 2025, which is worth $37 million. Sitting Russell Wilson the final 2 weeks of the season to ensure he doesn't suffer a major injury provides the Broncos financial flexibility if they decide to move on from him in 2024. It's not a done deal, but hey, this is, I don't know, this is just ridiculous. And again, with Jarrett Stidham coming in and starting for Russell Wilson. Stidham went through a similar situation last season with the Las Vegas Raiders and the whole Derek Carr situation. I don't know what to make of this. I don't like this. Again, I think Peyton never wanted Russell Wilson in Denver. He was never his guy from the jump. And I think the Broncos are starting to kind of renege on this whole, the financial obligations of the contract. This is ridiculous. Again, if I'm Russell Wilson, I'm getting out of Denver quick, fast, in a hurry. And again, my teams that I think that should try to make a move for Russell are the New York Giants, the Washington Commanders, also the Atlanta Falcons, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Carolina Panthers. You talk about a fall from grace. The Kansas City Chiefs, yeah, they are the defending Super Bowl champions, but they are not playing like the defending champions. If one word sums up the Chiefs' 2023 season, it is distractions. First of all, I think the distractions began 2 years ago when they traded Tyreek Hill to the Miami Dolphins. That was one straw that broke the camel's back. Also, let's look at this. After they won the Super Bowl back in February, the distractions kept coming, of course, with the endorsements, and all of that comes with, as they say, to the victor goes the spoils, right? Well, they've been spoiled in more ways than one. Matter of fact, Patrick Mahomes got spoiled a couple of years ago signing that big contract, and definitely deserving of it. But when you sign a massive contract like that, it gives them the inability to sign big free agents. We've seen with Tyreek Hill, the Chiefs during the offseason, they had an opportunity to sign a big time receiver. They didn't do that. The trade deadline came and went. They didn't get DeAndre Hopkins. They didn't try to make a run for Julio Jones. They kept their wide receivers. They felt nothing was wrong. So we saw what happened with their wide receivers dropping passes. We saw it with the Monday night loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. We've seen it really throughout this whole season. We've seen their wide receivers drop passes. And I talk about distractions. Their all-world tight end, Travis Kelce, let's just say he's been involved with a big-time pop star, and he's been unable to shake off, no pun intended, he's been unable to shake off distractions, as well as his teammates. They've been unable to shake off their distractions. And let's just say the Chiefs on Christmas Day, instead of getting Christmas gifts, they were handed a lump of coal by the Las Vegas Raiders as they lost a tough one on Christmas Day. And then also, too, Eric Bieniemy, head coach Andy Reid. And when Eric Bieniemy was with the Kansas City Chiefs, it was good cop, bad cop. Andy Reid was the good cop. Eric Bieniemy was the bad cop. Bieniemy was the one lighting that team, holding them accountable, including the quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. He held everybody on the offense accountable. And when Bieniemy was there, the offensive play was flawless. They dropped really hardly any passes when Bieniemy was there. When Tyreek Hill was there, Tyreek Hill was a game changer on the offensive side. Even when Tyreek was traded, Coach Bieniemy was still there. He held Mahomes accountable, holding Kelce accountable, holding the rest of that offense accountable. When we saw what happened last year, they won the Super Bowl. Bieniemy is now in Washington as the offensive coordinator and the assistant head coach. And now the bad cop is gone. So no one's really being held accountable. Andy Reid is basically running the show. Matt Nagy is the offensive coordinator, and it hasn't gone well. The Kansas City Chiefs, even when they got on a winning streak early in the season from September going into much of October, they just haven't played like the champions. They have not played Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl champion football. The accountability is gone from Bieniemy. Tyreek Hill's game-changing presence is gone. The distractions have come from outside forces, and it just hasn't been a Kansas City Chiefs season. I don't know what's it gonna take. Patrick Mahomes has come into press conferences and saying that he's got to be better. Yeah, he's got to be better, but his whole team, they've got to be better as well, offensively and defensively. they've got to be better. Will they be a playoff team? Yes, they will be a playoff team, but they're not scaring anybody. They haven't scared anybody this year. And if they don't get their act together, they're going to have to make some changes. And whether it be it's on the field changes or off the field changes, they're going to have to shake off those distractions in more ways than one. All right, let's preview Week 17's most important games in the NFL. The Detroit Lions will go up against the Dallas Cowboys. First for the Lions, big win over their NFC North rival Minnesota Vikings. Jared Goff, solid game from him. How about the backs with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery? And what about the wide receiver play with Amon-Ra St. Brown? I love that combination in Detroit with Goff and St. Brown. The last several years, they've really got their act together in more ways than one. As for the Dallas Cowboys, listen, Dallas is the soap opera that never ends. Losing a close one down in Miami last week to the Miami Dolphins, and then a week before that, just being annihilated by the Buffalo Bills. So with the Dallas Cowboys, they've got the talent, Dak Prescott, they've got Tony Pollard, they've got CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson is a nice tight end. Micah Parsons, listen, he's been very vocal the last couple of weeks about the Cowboys. People are saying that he's saying that they want the Cowboys to fail. My thing is this: if you're known as America's team, you got to deliver. And it doesn't help when you have an owner that has a big ego. That doesn't help either. So I think it brings so much attention, not just to himself, but to his team as well. But that's the Dallas Cowboys. That organization, for better or for worse, they bring business. Good or bad, they bring good business. Win, lose, or draw. Guess what? It's good for business. And the Dallas Cowboys, they've got a tough one because this Detroit Lions team is no joke. And Dan Campbell, again, a candidate for Coach of the Year, definitely doing a great job with the guys in the Motor City. So we've got a good one between the Detroit Lions and the Dallas Cowboys. The Miami Dolphins square off against the Baltimore Ravens. So the Dolphins' big win over the Dallas Cowboys last week down in Miami. Jason Sanders kicking the game-winning field goal. The week before that, the Dolphins shut out the New York Jets. And as for the Baltimore Ravens, impressive victory over the San Francisco 49ers on Christmas night, Monday Night Football. And then before that, the Ravens' impressive win on Sunday Night Football over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Lamar Jackson, I've said it all season long. He is my pick to win the league MVP. Lamar, a dynamic player, game-changing player with his athletic ability. He's got a strong arm. He's got a all-world defense that's backing him up. And kudos to John Harbaugh. We talk about consistency with head coaches and organizations. Well, you got to put John Harbaugh's name in that number as well. You got to put his name in the mix as well when it comes to the consistency and holding players accountable, and not just with an all-world quarterback, but I mean, you've got like a list of running backs that they use on that team with Justice Hill, Gus Edwards, Isaiah Likely is a formidable receiver as well. Odell Beckham has had a solid year this year. Baltimore is clicking on all cylinders on both sides of the ball. So with the Miami Dolphins, you have Tua Tagovailoa. You know what? He's an MVP candidate as well. Tyreek Hill is an MVP candidate. Jalen Waddle, his status is unknown for this game. But Miami, again, Mike McDaniel, his second year as the head coach of the Dolphins, he's going to get strong votes for Coach of the Year honors. But this may be a preview of this year's AFC Championship game. This should be in an intriguing matchup in Baltimore between the Miami Dolphins and the Baltimore Ravens. The Las Vegas Raiders square off against the Indianapolis Colts. So for the Raiders, they gave the Kansas City Chiefs no gifts, but they gave them a lump of coal on Christmas Day, beating the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Raiders, solid performance from them, especially on the defensive side. And I hope that Antonio Pierce becomes the full-time head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. He's done an amazing job so far as an interim. And as far as the Indianapolis Colts are concerned, listen, the Colts got embarrassed by the Falcons last week. The Colts have a chance to make the playoffs, but it's going to be a tough battle because the Raiders are no joke. And with that Raider defense, Max Crosby and company, Gardner Minshew is going to have his hands full. You know, Minshew is a great pocket quarterback. He's got his accuracy is through the roof, but he's going to have to get rid of that ball quick, fast, in a hurry because that Raider defense is nothing to be played with. And it's going to be a long day in Naptown with the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Indianapolis Colts. The New Orleans Saints will square off against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in an NFC South showdown. First for the Saints, New Orleans embarrassed last Thursday night by the Los Angeles Rams. They had no answers for Matthew Stafford and company. And the Saints have a solid chance to make the playoffs, but they're going to have to win out. But it's going to be tough against a team that has just been on a winning streak as of late, being the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They beat Jacksonville last week in convincing fashion. Then a week before that, they beat the Green Bay Packers. Baker Mayfield, listen, we talk about Joe Flacco. Again, I think Joe Flacco is my pick to win comeback player of the year, but also Baker Mayfield definitely is going to get some strong consideration as well. I like that combination with him and Mike Evans. Also, Rashad White's been running the ball well. That should be entertaining. For the Saints, listen, it's been a disappointing year for them. I had Derek Carr as a candidate for league MVP and possibly winning comeback player of the year. That has been so far below expectations, but the Saints still have a slim chance to make the playoffs, but they're going to have to win out and they're going to need help. So this should be a dogfight down in Tampa in the NFC South showdown between the New Orleans Saints and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tennessee Titans square off against the Houston Texans. Starting off for Tennessee, Will Levis did not play in last week's game, and Ryan Tannehill, filled in for Will Levis. The Titans lost a tough one last week to the Seattle Seahawks. So the Titans are having all sorts of issues at the quarterback position. We don't know Levis's status for the game, but Derrick Henry has been the mainstay for the Titans. We don't know what his future is going to hold in Tennessee, but in the meantime, they're going to be fighting for their playoff lives going up against the Houston Texans. We don't know the status of C.J. Stroud, but Case Keenum could get the start in this game. You know about Case. He's dependable. He's durable. Doesn't always wow you in the numbers category, but nevertheless, he can get the job done. So it's going to be a good matchup down in Houston between the Tennessee Titans and the Houston Texans. The Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the Seattle Seahawks. For the Steelers, it was just total domination last week, beating their AFC North rivals, Cincinnati Bengals. Who would have thought Mason Rudolph would put up a performance like that against the Bengals defense? I would have never imagined it in a million years. But you know what? One thing about Mason Rudolph, he's tough. He talks, he backs it up, he's fiery, and that's how he's described by head coach Mike Tomlin. So the Steelers are going to be coming into Seattle riding a high right now off that win last week. Against the Cincinnati Bengals. As for the Seahawks' big win over the Philadelphia Eagles, Geno Smith returning from injury, he handled his business, threw a couple of touchdown passes, including was very sharp in that fourth quarter drive. Kenneth Walker has been nice since coming back from injury. Listen, I don't have to talk about Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. They're going to bring the heat. Jackson Smith and Jigba has been nice on the defensive side. You know, Bobby Wagner. Also, you've got Boye Mafe has played nice for the Seahawks. This is going to be a dogfight up in the Pacific Northwest between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Seattle Seahawks. The Cincinnati Bengals square off against the Kansas City Chiefs. So for Cincinnati, embarrassed last week by their AFC North rival, Pittsburgh Steelers. For the Kansas City Chiefs, let's just say Christmas dinner was not good for them, losing to the Las Vegas Raiders. So the Bengals still have a chance to make the playoffs. No Joe Burrow, but they got another JB and Jake Browning. Jamar Chase could be available for this game. They're going to need him if he plays. They're going to need a lot of Joe Mixon in this contest. And as for the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes is going to be Patrick Mahomes. Travis Kelce is going to be Travis Kelce, but they're going to need more than Mahomes and Kelce. They're going to need their receivers to catch passes, because if they don't get their receivers to catch passes, this is going to be trouble. And Cincinnati could take advantage of that weak Chiefs defense by letting Joe Mixon get a lot of runs. Jake Browning can make plays. Hey, Cincinnati and Kansas City, this is a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game. We don't have Mahomes and Burrow, but we got Mahomes and Browning. So, hey, we'll take what we can get. And I think this is going to be a great matchup at Arrowhead between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Green Bay Packers square off against the Minnesota Vikings. First for the Packers, it looked as though they were going to lose last week to the Carolina Panthers. Guess what? Wrong answer. They would wind up winning. Jordan Love showed leadership. He showed poise. He showed confidence. And listen, Jordan Love, he's been solid this year. A big improvement from year one and year two. Getting it done not just with his arm, but also with his legs as well. Aaron Jones coming back from injury. What more can you say about him, right? Romeo Doubs, effective. Tucker Kraft is becoming a solid tight end. And Green Bay's got a lot of momentum coming into this game as they're going up against a team that is having a lot of problems at the quarterback position. Kirk Cousins, done for the year for the Vikings. Joshua Dobbs comes in. Joshua shows a lot of promise. He comes in and they get on a winning streak, but he struggles. Now Nick Mullins is in, and let's just say it hasn't gone well as of late. Justin Jefferson has continued to put up massive numbers since coming back from his injury. And the Vikings, they need this win to stay alive. For the Packers, they need this win to stay on top of what they need to do in the NFC North. This is going to be a great game in Minneapolis at US Bank Stadium between the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings. All right, now it's time for my game of the week. My game of the week is going to be the Green Bay Packers going up against the Minnesota Vikings. When you think of the Packers-Vikings rivalry, so many great players that have come out of this fantastic and this great rivalry with the likes of the head coaches, Vince Lombardi, Bud Grant. Also, you think of names like Chris Carter, Randy Moss, also Antonio Freeman, Reggie White. The list goes on and on. Bart Starr, Fran Tarkenton, the Purple People Eaters defense, just to name a few. Green Bay and Minnesota, their first meeting in this rivalry was October the 22nd, 1961. The Packers beat the Vikings 33-7. The last meeting that they had was October the 29th of 2023, with the Vikings beating the Packers 24-10. These two teams have met a total of 126 times. The Packers lead the all-time series 65-58-3. So listen, these two teams represent the upper Midwest. Minneapolis, Green Bay, Minnesota, Wisconsin. These two teams have played outdoors at such stadiums, iconic vintage stadiums like Lambeau Field. Also, for a lot of you NFL historians out there, the Metropolitan Stadium, which was in Bloomington, Minnesota, before the Vikings moved indoors to the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome, and now they're playing at that nice stadium in downtown Minneapolis at US Bank Stadium. So many great names, so many great games, so many great players that have participated in this rivalry. Adrian Peterson, Aaron Rodgers, Clay Matthews, just to name a few. Man, this is outstanding. I mean, Packers, Vikings. At the beginning of the year, this game looked as though it's probably like, okay, it's just another game. Not much significance, but we'll watch it just because of the historical nature of it. Well, guess what? I think this is a game that's going to be worth watching. We got Jordan Love. We got Aaron Jones. We got Justin Jefferson. What more could you ask for? Packers, Vikings, man. On New Year's Eve, it's nothing like it, man. And I think this game is going to add to the continuing rivalry, the historical rivalry between the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings. Green Bay, Minnesota, my game of the week. Before we get on out of here, I want to give you my picks on who I think will win Week 17's most important games in the NFL. The Detroit Lions going up against the Dallas Cowboys. I like Detroit to win. The Miami Dolphins going up against the Baltimore Ravens. I like Baltimore to win. The Las Vegas Raiders going up against the Indianapolis Colts. I like Las Vegas to win. The New Orleans Saints going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's going to be a close game, but I like Tampa Bay to win. Tennessee Titans going up against the Houston Texans. I like Houston to win. The Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the Seattle Seahawks. I like Seattle to win. Cincinnati Bengals going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. I like Kansas City to win. The Green Bay Packers going up against the Minnesota Vikings. I like Green Bay to win. So again, my picks are Detroit, Baltimore, Las Vegas, Tampa Bay, Houston, Seattle, Kansas City, and Green Bay. And there you have it. That's going to do it for another exciting edition of the League Wraparound. And until next time, everybody, I hope you and yours had a very Merry Christmas and would like to wish you and yours a very happy and safe New Year. Until next time, everybody, so long.